Hey, in this video we're actually going to create the player character's run and idle animations. It's going to be loads of fun, so without further ado, let's begin by making the idle animation. I'll rename the test animation we made in the last video to idle, and then I'll delete all keyframes that I placed before by simply dragging my mouse and hitting the delete key on my keyboard. Now, you may have noticed this animator component attached to the player character root empty game object. For now, just don't pay any attention to it. Just know that we'll be using it soon enough to handle animation transitions. With that said, I'll hit the record button and begin animating my creation. Now, in case you don't know, the idle animation will be used when the character is standing still. So we want to make the character move slightly, a bit like he's breathing. Since we're making an action top-down shooter game, we want to make his breathing fast, as if he's out of breath, yet still ready to run some more, dodge enemies and shoot projectiles. With that said, I'll select his body and move it up slightly as about 10 milliseconds. And of course you'll see those little keyframes have appeared on my timeline. Of course we don't want the animation popping like this. So I'll select the first keyframes, hit Ctrl C to copy them, and then paste them at 20 milliseconds. This way the animation will loop. And hitting the play button, I get that cool little up and down motion. But still, this looks way too robotic and lifeless. Let's add some overlapping action to the character's head. Overlapping action is basically when something trails behind or shoots off in front of the rest. For example, a rope or some hair will have a lot of overlapping action, since the tips will cease moving only after the rest has come to a halt. So at about 5 milliseconds, I'll lower my head slightly, as if it's not completely registered yet that the body has gone up. And then at 15 milliseconds, I'll get the head shooting up so the whole character feels slightly stretched. Without forgetting, of course, to copy and paste the first keyframe at the end of the animation, which is a routine action that must be taken when making looping animations, as is very often the case when making games. And now you'll see that when I hit play, the animation looks already that much cooler. I can of course scale the head at 5 milliseconds, squashing it slightly, and then perhaps stretching it at 15 milliseconds. I'll make this very subtle, but you can exaggerate this as much as you like. The more you do this, the squishier and more cartoony your character will feel. Now that the body and head have some nice movement going on, I'll bring to life these arms, rotating them halfway through the animation so they look more relaxed and detached from the body. Always try adding a wee bit of movement wherever you can to any body parts, even if that movement is tiny. It will make things feel a lot more lively and dynamic. And that's it really. We've made a simple idle animation. Now of course your character may look very different from mine. Maybe he's an old man. If that's the case, then you want to make the animation slower, each keyframe more spaced out. Remember that to speed up or slow down your animation, you can tweak the sample's value or select all keyframes on your timeline and then left click on this little blue line and holding the left mouse button drag left or right to squash your keyframes together, and so speed things up or pull keyframes apart and as a result slow stuff down. This is really cool because you can speed up or slow down only certain chunks of your animation, which was not the case with the sample's value. Quick and very useful shortcut to quickly view your animation, something you should regularly do of course, is clicking on the timeline and then hitting the space key. That's just much faster than having to move your cursor all the way to the play button. It's not much, but in the long run, you'll save time. Okay, let's now make the character's run animation. So I'll head over here and hit create new clip to create a new animation. I'll save it at the same place as where I saved my idle animation, calling it run this time. Now again, I'm making a fast-paced action game here, so I'm going to make a fast dynamic run. As usual, before animating, make sure to hit the red record button. I'll begin by selecting my left leg and moving it up. Then at frame 10, I'll move that same leg back down and instead move the other leg up. And then I'll copy the first keyframes and paste them at 20 milliseconds, so that again my animation will loop. You'll see that my run looks quite weak and crappy for now though. Also at some points both legs are off the ground, which looks and feels a little weird. So I'll copy the first keyframe of my right leg and paste it here. This way it will remain firmly on solid ground until the left leg is near enough the ground itself, and then do the same on the other side, this time keeping the left leg on the ground. With that done, I'll give some weight to this run by selecting the body and moving it down at about 5 milliseconds. Then at 10 milliseconds, I'll move it back up a bit, and then at 15, I'll again move it down. And you'll see that that makes the run feel a whole lot more interesting and dynamic. And again, you can squash the head and or body slightly when it goes down to make things feel more squishy. To finish up, also consider rotating the body or head. For example, I'll rotate the body at frame 1 slightly, and then rotate it in the other direction halfway through the animation. And as usual, copy and paste the first keyframe at the end so everything loops. And that's how I make an idle and run animation for my characters. And I urge you to take your time with these. Get comfortable using the animation timeline, which is something we'll be using a lot during this course. Obviously, if your animations don't look good or you find using Unity's animation tool difficult, don't worry about it. Like with drawing game characters, it will take practice and patience. Just enjoy the process, have fun, and eventually you'll become a master game artist and animator. With that said, in the next video, my brother Liam will take over, and with him you'll make your very first script for your game, one which will handle the player's movement. And I'll see you right after that to put into place some animation transitions using the animator. Okay, see you soon.